This is the brick. And this is the Brick Hammer. It's basically the brick, but it's wrapped in tin foil. This device has been generating quite a hum, because I think it's going off. Now, I have to admit, when I first unboxed this beauty, I was struck by its unique design philosophy. The Brick Hammer has such an innovative approach to portability. I must say, the build quality is absolutely extraordinary. The metallic finish has this wonderful organic texture that feels surprisingly familiar in the hands. The weight distribution is perfect for extended gaming sessions, though I should warn you that the Brick Hammer can get very hot during intensive use, and you have to be careful, because if this hits 200 degrees, it's baked. The ergonomics are so thoughtfully designed that you could comfortably grip this device for hours, assuming that you don't mind the occasional sprout or small green shoot coming from the surface. Now, the screen quality is where this device really shines, or rather where it would really shine if it had a screen. The display technology is so cutting edge that it exists purely in the realm of imagination, providing infinite contrast ratios and perfect black levels. The button layout is minimalistic to the point of zen-like simplicity, with TrimUI boldly deciding that physical controls are merely a suggestion rather than a necessity. Now, this whole unit is just like the original brick, but wrapped entirely in a protective foil casing, though I suspect this may be affecting the Wi-Fi reception somewhat. I did try and connect it to Wi-Fi, but it couldn't see my network. The performance benchmarks are quite remarkable when you consider that this device manages to run absolutely nothing with perfect efficiency. Battery life is theoretically infinite, which is a significant improvement over most handhelds at this price point. The game library is refreshingly curated, consisting entirely of whatever your imagination can conjure, which means no storage limitations whatsoever. I particularly enjoyed playing through my mental recreation of Sonic the Hedgehog, though the frame rate did suffer when I got distracted by a small dog. Okay, look, I haven't finally lost the plot. I'm not entirely sure I had a plot to begin with, but let me explain what's actually happening here. This is quite literally a potato wrapped in kitchen foil, and I'm afraid that is about as close as I'm going to get to the actual device for the foreseeable future. See, I placed my order for the Brick Hammer on July 22nd through LitNXT, which I'll admit was rather late to the party, but funds were tight at the time. According to the original timeline, these devices should have started shipping in early August. When August the 18th rolled around with no shipping notification, I reached out to LitNXT and I received what I thought was a reasonable explanation. They informed me that the factory had discovered a colour variation in the anodized metal and was reworking the product to ensure quality. Fair enough, I thought. These things happen in manufacturing, and I appreciated their comment and their commitment to getting it right. The email promised shipping by the end of August, and to their credit, they upgraded my order to faster shipping. Apparently, I've yet to see that happen, however, because we are on August the 30th, and I am still staring at an empty mailbox. Now, I want to be absolutely clear here. This isn't just a LitNXT problem, and I'm not really singling them out unfairly. It's just that's the place that I bought my thing through. In fact, their communication has been more transparent than some others, just not by much. The real issue is that this pattern of delay and communication failure has become endemic across the entire retro handheld market. Let me paint you a picture of what's been happening across the industry. Because the brick situation is merely the tip of a very large and problematic iceberg. TrimUI themselves have been remarkably quiet about the widespread delays affecting what is actually their flagship product. Community discussions on Reddit paint a clear picture of frustrated customers who've placed pre-orders months ago, only to watch the product status mysteriously revert to pre-order even after its supposed launch date. Some customers have reported receiving free accessories as a compensation, which, look, it's a nice gesture, but it doesn't affect the fundamental problem of unmet expectations and poor communication. All of this is compounded by some customers receiving units relatively quickly, depending on which store they placed an order with. And we're even seeing now TrimUIstore.com has stopped allowing refunds. This is not a good situation for any customer to be in. And it doesn't look to be wholly the responsibility of TrimUI Store, but it is their job to fix this. The situation becomes even more concerning when you look at the broader pattern across major brands and retailers. The common thread is always the same. Orders placed, money taken, and then radio silence. Sometimes no confirmation emails, no shipping notifications, no tracking numbers. Customers are left to crowdsource information on Reddit, asking fellow buyers about their wait times just to gauge whether or not their order has been lost in the system or is simply subject to unstated delays. But here's what gets my goat about this whole situation. It is completely unnecessary. The delays themselves aren't the problem. Manufacturing is complex. Supply chains are unpredictable. And quality control sometimes requires difficult decisions. What's inexcusable is the communication vacuum that surrounds these delays. And this brings me to the behavioral economics of customer communication, because what these companies are doing isn't just bad customer service. It's actually damaging their own business interests in ways that they probably don't even realize. Now, I should say, and I think you should know who is saying these things before I begin, because you guys don't know me well enough yet. I run my own business. And over the last decade or so, I've studied behavioral economics because it helps me sell to my customers, it helps me manage expectations, and ultimately, it helps me be a better business person. I'm not coming at this from an angry gamer who hasn't had their device perspective, but rather, I'm a marketer of, it's been about 13 years now, who is seeing some fundamental problems in this industry which could easily be addressed and wouldn't even cost that much to do. The main principle I want to talk about here is uncertainty aversion. And it explains why the current approach is so psychologically damaging to you and I. Simply put, people prefer negative certainty over uncertainty. Bad news, delivered clearly and honestly, is psychologically preferable to ambiguous situations where customers don't know what's happening. When TrimUI or any retailer goes silent during delays, they're not protecting themselves from customer anger, they're actually amplifying it. The human brain is wired to fill in information voids with worst-case scenarios. And when customers don't hear anything, they start imagining that their order has been lost, that the company's just taken all their money and run, or that they're being deliberately ignored. Worse, we know these companies have relationship with big creators, and we don't hear anything from those big creators either. They are usually our conduits to these companies, and to not hear anything is disappointing. But honestly, this probably isn't the big creators' fault. I've been doing this for just 2 weeks, 3 weeks, is it coming up to? But this is a full-time job to, research your videos, keep ahead of all the news coming out, and actually have time to film and edit. So I don't blame them, because in many cases, I don't think news of this stuff always filters through. Uncertainty aversion is compounded by something called loss aversion, where losses feel approximately twice as powerful as equivalent gains. Customers perceive delays as a loss of time, of money, of trust, and the pain of waiting feels more intense than the eventual pleasure of receiving the product. When companies fail to communicate, they're allowing that pain to compound unnecessarily. There's also the expectation disconfirmation theory to consider. Customer satisfaction is determined by comparing actual performance to prior expectations. When companies set delivery expectations and then fail to meet them without explanation, they create negative disconfirmation that damages satisfaction far more than if they'd simply set realistic expectations from the beginning. The irony is that transparent communication about delays can actually strengthen customer relations rather than damage them. Studies consistently show that customers respond positively to honest and proactive communication, even when the news isn't what they want to hear. Companies that practice radical transparency often see improved customer retention and loyalty because they demonstrate accountability and respect for their customers' intelligence. So what should these companies be doing instead? The solution is actually quite straightforward, and it's based on well-established principles of customer relationship management. First, proactively communicate with your customers. It's absolutely essential. Companies need to communicate delays before customers start asking about them. And this means monitoring production timelines closely and sending updates at the first sign of potential issues, not after deadlines have already been missed. And this goes not just for the manufacturer, but also for the resellers. If you're a reseller and you're not getting enough orders in to fulfill what you already have, for Christ's sake, stop selling the units and write to your current customers explaining the delay. Do you know how frustrating it's been to see some people sort of proudly parading their brand new brick hammers that they ordered last week when your copy of exactly the same thing seems to be nothing but vaporware? Second, the communication itself needs to be specific and honest. Vague updates like coming soon or shipping shortly are worse than no communication at all, because they create this false hope and reset the disappointment cycle. Customers need specific timelines, even if those timelines are longer than anybody would have preferred. Now, look, again, I go back to my experience with Lit NXT, who promised, because every communication with a customer is a promise, to ship by the end of the month, and have failed to do so. It may not be their fault, but it is their problem. It is their responsibility. Third, companies need to acknowledge the inconvenience and offer meaningful compensation. And this doesn't necessarily mean refunds or massive discounts, but it does mean demonstrating that they understand and value their customers' patience. Upgraded shipping, small discounts on future orders, or exclusive early access to new products can go a long way towards maintaining goodwill. But that also has to be tempered with hitting the next expectation deadline that you have set for yourself. Again, something that Lit NXT has missed in my case. Fourth, regular progress updates are critical, even if there's no new information to share. A simple, "we're still working on this and haven't forgotten about you" message every couple of weeks can prevent customers from feeling abandoned. I remember Iron, A-Y-N, that I never know what to call them. But during the shipping of the portal, they released statements every week. This week we are shipping orders X to Y. And that was a great source of comfort. And this is perfectly illustrated by a study on the anxiety of train passengers. Researchers found that providing real-time information, such as a countdown clock to the train's arrival, suddenly reduced the stress and anxiety associated with waiting. The wait time itself doesn't change, but the certainty provided by the countdown clock gives passengers a sense of security and control, preventing their minds from defaulting to worst-case scenarios. This is because people have this need for closure. The simple act of knowing what to expect transforms a frustrating experience into a manageable one, leading to greater customer satisfaction. Now, I have to be completely honest with you about something, and this is where things get a little bit personal for me. I'm a relatively new creator in this space, 2 weeks, 3 weeks coming up. And making this video is probably not the smartest career move I could have made. You know, I'm hoping to build relationships with manufacturers and retailers for future reviews and collaborations. And calling out industry-wide problems isn't exactly the best way to make friends and influence people. There's this very real possibility that this video could close doors for me before they've even had a chance to open. Some companies might see this and think it's unnecessarily critical, or decide that I'm not the kind of creator that they want to work with. And, you know, I understand that, and I understand the risk. And I've thought very long and very hard about doing this. But here's the thing. This issue is bigger than my personal career aspirations. The retro handheld community is just... It deserves better than the current state of affairs, and someone needs to say it clearly and publicly. If we don't hold these companies accountable for basic business practices like communication and customer service, we're essentially enabling a race to the bottom where customer experience becomes an afterthought. The community that's grown up around these devices is passionate, it's knowledgeable, and it is incredibly supportive. These are people who genuinely love retro gaming and all of the stuff that goes along with it. And they are willing to take risks on new products from relatively unknown manufacturers as well. They deserve to be treated with respect and transparency, not left in the dark where their money sits in limbo. So to TrimUI, to LitNXT, PowKiddy, all of the other stores out there who are doing the same thing but I haven't mentioned, I want to offer some practical advice that could genuinely improve your business outcomes and make your customers happier. Invest in proper customer relationship management systems. And this doesn't have to be expensive or complicated, but you need systems in place that can track orders, send automated updates, and flag potential issues before they become the problem. Your customers shouldn't have to rely on Reddit to figure out what's happening with their orders. Train your customer service teams to communicate with empathy and specificity. When delays happen, acknowledge them quickly and before anybody else mentions it as well. Explain the reasons honestly and then provide realistic new timelines. Your customers are adults who can handle the truth, but they can't handle being ignored. Build buffer times into your delivery estimates. It's better to under-promise and over-deliver than to occasionally miss your own deadlines. If you think something will take you 4 weeks, tell your customers 6 weeks and then surprise them when it arrives early. Create clear escalation procedures for different types of delays. Minor delays might warrant an email update. Major delays or quality issues could trigger, in fact, should trigger more substantial communication and possibly compensation. And like I said, this compensation, it doesn't have to be bank-breaking refunds or discounts, just enough so that customers feel seen and acknowledged and feel that their trust in your company has not been misplaced. Most importantly, remember that your customers are not just transaction numbers. They are real people who have chosen to trust you with their money and their enthusiasm and their time. And that trust is valuable. It's an asset that takes time to build, and it can be destroyed ever so quickly through poor communication. The retro handheld market is still relatively young, and there's enormous potential for growth and innovation, but that potential will only be realized if companies can match their technical innovation with professional business practices. The community is ready to support companies that treat them with respect and transparency. We've seen that in the past. I genuinely hope that this video serves as a wake-up call rather than just another complaint that gets thrown into the void. These problems are solvable, and the solutions aren't complex. They're not expensive. What's required is a commitment to putting customer experience at the center of your business operations, not treating us as an afterthought. If you've had similar experiences with delayed orders or poor communication from retro handheld companies, I'd encourage you to share this video with retailers and manufacturers, not as an attack, but as constructive feedback from customers who want to see the industry succeed. The goal isn't to destroy anybody here. It's not to hold one company up and to say, look, these people are terrible. They shouldn't be in this space. It's to raise the bar for what we should expect from professional businesses in this area. We can have both cutting-edge devices and competent customer service, but only if we're willing to demand both. If you found this useful at all, if you've had your own experience with this, please give it a little like and consider subscribing for more content about retro handhelds and the industry that creates them. I promise future videos are going to be a little bit less ranty than this and hopefully more focused on actual devices, assuming that I can actually get my hands on some. But until next time, keep gaming, keep supporting innovation, but also keep expecting basic professionalism that every customer deserves. Thanks ever so much for watching. See you next time.